All right. The last bit of the outline that you've got there, particularly what you're interested in, is that term "birth of a nation." And you've got an article that explains it on the lecture module. It's a brief article, it won't take you long to read. And you've got the film. I show you 6 minutes of the film that I show in class. So let me set that up for you. First, before I get to that term, though, there's a few more things in the outline I need to set up for you, and that's just how Reconstruction ends. So after Johnson, Grant becomes president. Grant, remember, he helped us win the Civil War. His presidency is full of like scandals, and there's like political scandals, financial scandals. Most people think Grant didn't have anything to do with it, but Americans are easily distracted. So people kind of stop paying attention to what's going on in the South and get interested in all of Grant's political scandals. And then 1873, a huge economic panic happens. Huge collapse. Banks close, people lose their jobs. Now no one's paying attention to what's going on in the South because they're busy trying to make sure they can feed their own family. It's in this context that the election of 1876 happens. So Hayes runs with the Republican Party and Tilden runs with the Democratic Party. This election is pretty much very similar to the one we'll see in 2000. What happens in the election of 1876 is Tilden, Democrat, gets the popular vote, but the Electoral College vote is in dispute in a few states, one of which is Florida. And so whoever gets the disputed Electoral College votes, because it's close enough between Hayes and Tilden, whoever gets that disputed Electoral College vote is going to get the presidency. So it goes to a committee in Congress, and the committee in Congress, this is then the Compromise of 1877, the committee in Congress determines that Hayes will become the president. So you should maybe question there for a moment, because I just said that Tilden had the popular vote. But the very first thing, one of the very first things Hayes does is he takes the military out of the South, essentially ends Reconstruction. And so it appears what the compromise was there is Democrats, all they were worried about was ending Reconstruction. And so they handed over the presidency if Reconstruction would end, because that then would allow the South to be in charge. That's why we have a literacy test until 1964. This Democratic Party is very different than the Democrat Party we're going to see later. It's going to start to switch when we get to the 1930s. This Democrat Party is not like the Democrat Party in the 1930s and later. Okay, I do have there on your outline a letter from a former slave, and some people suggest maybe this letter is not from an actual individual. I would say it doesn't matter, because it's written in the time and it reflects the thought of the time. And while Reconstruction obviously was a failure, we get 3 successes from Reconstruction, which we're going to need for the Civil Rights Movement 100 years later. That's education, the black community, black family, and the black church. And in that letter that he writes kind of tongue-in-cheek, you can see those ideas of a strong black family, a strong black church, and education for his children. And again, some of the film clips that you have make those points too. So the last term you have there is Birth of a Nation. And this film was one of the first films ever. It's released in 1915. It was hugely successful. It's the first film that's shown in the White House. Wilson is president. Wilson has a PhD in political science, and he was kind of like a consultant for the film. He had written a series of textbooks, and they used sections of his books in the film. And when Wilson saw it, he reportedly said, "It is like writing history with lightning. My regret is that it is oh so terribly true." So when you're watching this film clip, and read the article I gave you first, because it kind of gives you some background there. When you're watching this film clip, think about that comment by Wilson, right? Film's a new medium, so people see this. They think this is real. I mean, they understand it's a film, but they think this is an actual telling of how things happen in Reconstruction. And then you have your president, who has a PhD, telling you it's like writing history with lightning. My regret is that it is oh so terribly true. So this becomes the version of Reconstruction that people believe. And again, you'll see in this film, blacks are portrayed as out of control, uncivilized, in horribly racist ways. The other thing to point out to you, it's kind of hard to see in this film, but none of the primary characters are people of color. The primary characters are white people in blackface, which further contributes to the ways in which this is racist propaganda. And you can see that there's a historical facsimile. It's supposed to be a historical retelling of an actual event, and it's completely not true. But right after that, there's a scene where two people are talking in the street. It's a couple of women and a man. That man is supposed to be a white person in blackface. And then that's why that other white man is so upset, because like a black man could speak to a white woman in public and like he is her equal. And then you see there how he gets apparently the idea to create the KKK. And in the film, the KKK is portrayed as the savior of the South. All right, if you have any questions, you can put those in the discussion module. Take care.